Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Theaters with Seth, a podcast where we talk about and review movies and TV shows. I have yet to have a guest or someone review movies with me, not including the old reviews I used to do on the channel on here with me. So today it's just going to be me reviewing Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And if you're watching this video or listening to this podcast wondering, where have you been and why is this the first thing you posted in like 2 months? Yes, I understand. I just came back after a 2-month break. I was actually waiting for my new capture card that I use to record video game footage to come in, and then it came in, and then it wasn't working. I had to send it back, and then they sent it back, and then I found out I can't actually record 4K on it, which it's supposed to be able to record 4K. But since I don't have a 4K monitor, I would actually have to hook it up to one of my TVs in the living room or our bedroom to be able to record 4K on it. So whether I make actual 4K content in the future, I don't know. That's up in the air, but that is what I've been working on. I've also been sick. It's also been the holidays, and it just needed a time for my break. So I'm starting to see a trend. Whenever I take a break and come back, I come back and make a podcast because it's a bit easier than some of the other things I do, just to kind of jump into it. But yeah, if you're wondering where I've been, that's what I've been doing, and I'm hoping to get back into making content here very soon when it comes to the video game stuff. But for now, I'm going to probably I'm making this review right now, and I'm probably going to make another review soon about Avatar, The Way of Water. I don't know, I haven't really decided on that one if I really wanted to do a review for that one, but I wanted to do a review for this one because this movie amazed me. So with that being said, now that the housekeeping's kind of done, how this is going to work if you're new to the channel or new to these videos, I just got to say real quick, I actually just recorded this whole podcast, and I ended up finding out that I actually didn't record it correctly. I recorded the wrong mic and stuff. So I did this whole review. I talked for 30 minutes, and now I got to do it again. So this might seem a bit quicker than usual. I'm trying to keep these podcasts under about an hour to 30 minutes to an hour. So maybe I'll extend in the future if I get someone on here, but if it's just me, I'm going to try to be straightforward with my thoughts about things and everything. But how these generally work is I give my general review of it without any spoilers. I give my rating at the end of the non-spoiler section, and then I give you some time to leave if you want to leave with not getting anything spoiled. And then I kind of talk about some of the specific moments I like the most that would spoil how the movie went. Now, that's how it goes. So I'm going to go into kind of the non-spoiler section just to give a kind of a general idea of what happens in the movie, but not spoil anything. Is that Puss in Boots, this is actually his second movie, believe it or not. Most people kind of forget that, is that there was a movie already with Humpty Dumpty and his friendship with Humpty Dumpty. I don't remember much about the movie. And in fact, I went and saw the movie with my girlfriend, who she said she saw it and didn't remember anything other than that Kitty, who's in this movie, is in that one too, is in it, and Humpty Dumpty's in it as well. So if I were to recommend you see that movie for this one for context, you don't need it, but it will help give a context with the Kitty character especially. So if you got an hour and a half before maybe seeing this and you just want a little bit of context, I recommend watching that because it was fun. It was decent. It wasn't as good as this one, and probably as some of the other Shreks, but it has everything that you would expect from a Shrek kind of spin-off tale. It has a lot of and this one has this too, but a lot of fairy tale parodies, and they go their own direction with it, and it's done really well. So I'd recommend watching that before this, just to get that little bit of context, but you really don't need it. You really don't need it. But yeah, in this movie, Puss in Boots, he's a hero. He's on his own. He's basically really brave, and he's saving people and all this, but he dies in the intro. He has an accident with a bell and it kills him. And then he finds out that he's on his last life. That's right. He's a cat and he has 9 lives. Ha ha. But he's on his last one because he's been foolish with the other 8. So now that he's on his last one, he's scared of actually dying for real. So he goes to try to find the last wish so he can wish his 9 lives back. And he kind of learns what it means. Means to actually have a meaningful life. So that's the actual general idea of the story. Now, to give my review in 1 to 2 sentences, this movie is fantastic. You need to go see it, or at the very least, watch it when it comes out on whatever streaming service immediately. It is that good. This is probably one of the best animation movies I have seen in a while. And I actually saw this in the theaters. Originally, I wasn't going to go see this in the theaters because I thought it's a Puss in Boots movie. Like, this is something I'd wait for it to come on a streaming service. But I saw everyone talking about it online, because I'm usually later to the review kind of things when it comes to movies and TV shows. But I was like, you know what? I went and saw Avatar: The Way of Water. Then afterwards, I was like, yeah, I know we just went and saw a movie in theaters. I'm talking to my girlfriend. And I was like, why don't we just go see this one too? Like, that was really fun going to the theaters again. And she was like, yeah, sure, why not? And we went and saw it, and we weren't. In fact, I think we walked away from that movie happier than Avatar, which is funny. But then again, we had high expectations of Avatar. We didn't have high expectations of this. So if you didn't have high expectations of this, you probably will now hearing me and a bunch of other people say it's really good. But it is really good. Like, it meets those expectations. It didn't have a lot to meet, and it went far and beyond. It is that good. And it's not just like, oh, this like one or two things are really good. Like, the animation's really good. The characters are very well developed. The story itself is amazing. And the relationships between the characters great. It's entertaining start for finish. Action, comedy, the whole deal. It has everything that like a Shrek movie would have, with all the references to like pop culture and fairy tales, while also having a very genuine, meaningful, well put together story. The biggest highlights from this movie are, 1, the actual story and the message behind the story, and 2, the main villain is so cool and worth every second of like when he's on screen. He's amazing. He's basically the big bad wolf, but he's meant to like represent something else, and the way they do it is great. It is kind of like they make it very obvious, but not too obvious, where like you understand where they're going with it, but you don't have to have a degree in reading symbolism to understand what they're trying to say. And I think that's what makes this a good movie for not only adults, if they just like entertaining action animated movies, but also for families that have kids that want them to watch like, oh, cool animated like cat and like fun adventures, and then it has a bunch of references for the adults too and the parents. Like, it is great for all different types, groups of people. In fact, when me and my girlfriend saw it, we were getting, that was another thing too. We kept getting unlucky with every time we go to the theater the past couple, like the past year. There's always somebody talking. There was nobody talking in our theater. It was actually really respectable. Now, there was only a few groups, so that might have been why. But like, what happened in the past year or two where people just like, they're freaking rude in the theater. And, I'm expecting to go to an animated movie about a cat to have like a family in it with some rowdy kids. That I can forgive, especially if the kids are a little bit rowdy and the parents are like, shush, they keep their kids under control. Like, I can forgive that because like, kids are kids, right? It's when they're completely out of control is the problem. But my point is that like, I expected it here and I didn't get it here. But then I go to like Thor, Love and Thunder or Avatar: The Way of Water, and there's some like punk literally burping at the top of his lungs because like he's bored and he just likes to cause issues, like that has happened so many times. I went and saw Thor, Love and Thunder because like, why not? Like, we had time, and that was the only movie I was really interested in seeing at the time. There's a whole group like just laughing and talking out loud behind us. And then somebody was like, shush. And then they turned around. They didn't turn around, but they turned towards him and goes, this movie's stupid, so who cares? Now, as much as I agreed there was a lot with the movie I didn't like, I'm just like, dude, people are still watching it. Like, don't be rude. So I've been dealing with that a lot lately, and I got none of that during this movie. So that made it 5 times better, for sure. So maybe it gets like a little extra point for me there. So that might be a bit biased. But regardless, in general, I was entertained from start to finish. I loved about like every second. It had me laughing. It had me feeling emotion. Like, I was deeply connected to the characters. I wanted them to succeed. And I never really hated anybody. The only person I kind of didn't like was actually John Mulaney's character. But that was because you were meant, like, he's a villain. You're supposed to not like he's supposed to be really bad. But he was still entertaining. So, like, it helped. Like, he was funny. But you were just like, man, this guy's awful. Like, Like, it's just ridiculous. And John Mulaney's voice as him just had me cracking up because the whole time I was like, he sounds so familiar. I can't pinpoint it, but it's that same silly voice. And then I realized after thinking of like one of John Mulaney's specials, I was like, yeah, that's him. I turned towards my girlfriend and I was like, that's John Mulaney. And she just looks at me like, nuh-uh, no way. Yeah, he's Jack Horner in this movie, and his whole design and everything is absolutely hilarious. Like, it's the all the references that he has alone because he collects like fairy tale magical items and shit. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. So like the characters are great. Each and every one of them actually has like a general purpose for the overall story and are not just like a useless side character either. You know, they all kind of have mostly a point. And these are like the major side characters, not like the side, like, you know, sis and extra in the background or whatever. They all have a point to the story. Puss's conflict and his journey throughout it drives the story forward. The main villain is cool, and every time he's on screen, you love him. And he is the main reason the story, like the conflict happens, and it's for a reason, and you don't really hate what he's trying to do, but you still don't want to see him succeed. So he works as a great villain, and he's threatening as a villain, and you respect him for it. It's great. Kitty is a great like side character to kind of outline Puss's like commitment issues, which is what is vital to the story. And Perrito, like his like new like Chihuahua sidekick, is supposed to be kind of like the antithesis to how he views their issues and their problems. And that's another reason for a side character, one that challenges, and then one that is supposed to be the opposite of the main character. Works fantastic. The side villains, Jack Horner's entertaining and you hate to see him. And then you have side villains that you're kind of rooting for, but you still don't want them to win because they're actually downheart good people. And their conflict and what they're doing kind of outlines the same thing that Puss in Boots is dealing with, but kind of in a different light. So it's like something different when you're watching them, and it kind of gives you a chance to think about the overall message of the story. So the characters are well put together. They're fucking fantastic. Sorry for my language. I don't know why I'm trying to be so play. I know like if you're a kid watching this, you should realize that I got a dirty mouth. But regardless, I do recommend this for families to go see. I know it's like I say curse words and then I'm like, yeah, go see this with families. As if I'm talking to the families, they're probably not gonna listen to me. But regardless, I say that a lot too. But yeah. So the characters are great. Its action start to finish is great. It's very funny. It has great references. The kids would enjoy it, and has a bunch of great jokes for adults to enjoy as well. So what's next? The animation is amazing. The hair on Puss in Boots and Kitty is like the best I've seen in a long time. And ever since I saw Moana, the hair on them looks great, because there's moments where like their hair kind of fluffs up and gets staticky like cats do, and it looks so real. Like, it blew me away. And then it also does this like animation style at times when there's a lot of action that's kind of like Mitchell's versus the Machines, which is another great movie you need to go see if you haven't already. It's highly underrated, especially when it like didn't get like an Oscar. I think something else got an Oscar. I can't remember what it lost to, but it was fantastic. Did it lose? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up later, and tell me down below if I'm wrong about that. But it was a great movie. So if you liked Mitchell's vs. Machines, it has a little bit of that animation style in it, but it isn't exactly like that. So it's like, it's still its own thing, but it kind of takes that like stop motion, how it kind of skips at time when it's action, and it works so well, you know? So if you like that, you'd like this too. Yeah, and that's kind of like most of the general thoughts I had on it. I was entertained from start to finish. All the characters are well put together, and they're all vital to the story, which is very well crafted. The animation is top tier for sure when it comes to movies. And when I think of great animated movies, I'm going to think of this at the top. That's why, like, it is that good. So if you haven't already, I would say go see this out in theaters right now if it's still available, or at the very least, wait for it to get put on a streaming service and watch it immediately. It is great. I would definitely recommend binging this with the other Puss in Boots movie, and maybe even the Shreks. They kind of get them all together because they even throw a couple references to Shrek. They actually had the old they actually had the new DreamWorks intro, and it kind of got some emotion out of me too, because like I was like, oh man, I grew up with all these movies too. Oh, that's another thing I should say. When it comes to getting emotion out of you, it will get emotion out of you, and if it doesn't, you see what they're trying to do and you can respect them for what they're trying to do. It got me kind of feeling in my feels for a little bit. So if you like it when movies do that, they make you actually feel something. This movie does that. I've kind of wrapped up. I know I'm moving along pretty quick, but like I said, I already did this podcast once, so I am trying to like get it done. And I am trying to keep this within 30 minutes to about an hour, and I still have the whole spoiler section to get to. So I'll end it off by talking about my actual rating. My actual rating, I want to give this movie a 9.5 because I think it's that good, but I don't think it really deserves that because I think the major issue with this movie is the pacing is extremely, extremely fast, and that worked with me, but I think that would tear down some people. Now, that might work for you, and it worked for you and you like the pacing of it, then it's probably a 9.5 for you. But if you really didn't like that, then it would probably be in the range of 9 to 8.5. And if you just don't like anime movies in general, or you don't like the actual comedy in it, maybe you just don't think it's that funny, and then it's probably more like a 7. But I want to give it a 9 officially. That's like my official rating. But I could see why people think it's an 8.5 to a 9.5. And I probably want to give it a 9.5, but I'm going to go with the more safe route and give it a 9 because I can see why people having issues with the pacing and maybe some of the overhanded messaging in it on what it's trying to tell you. I can see people not liking that. But overall, I was entertained. I liked the characters, and the messaging and story was well put together, and that is why it deserves a 9. And it's probably going to be considered one of the best animated movies we've had in the past 5 years for sure, maybe one of all time. I don't think it's maybe the best of all time, but it would be in the debates up there for sure for animation, story, characters, everything. It is that good, and the villain on top of everything is probably the best part about this movie above all. So if you liked anything of what I said about the movie, if it sounds great and you want to go see it, highly recommend it. Go do it now. And if you don't want to hear spoilers, I'm giving you the chance now to leave and it not be spoiled. So I'm going to give a couple seconds for those people to leave, get out, don't come back until you've seen the movie and you've seen how good it is. All right. So I'll see you guys all very soon if this is where you're leaving in the video. Okay, is that it? Are they gone? Is everyone gone? I gave them about 5 seconds, and I'm still giving them a little bit more time saying this stuff. If you haven't left yet, leave. All right, they've had their chance. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, and spoilers, if you skipped ahead to this part and you didn't hear my general review at all, I'm going to quickly go through that. I thought the movie was great. It is a 9 out of 10, maybe a 9.5. I could see how people go back and forth, maybe into an 8.5 and maybe even a 7, but like I would kind of like debate that a bit and argue a bit, you know. But I thought the animation was fantastic. It looked realistic. The story was well put together. It was fantastic. The characters are amazing, and the villain steals the show. And overall, the entire movie it was great from start to finish and entertained me. So that was my general thoughts. But in this spoiler section, I kind of want to specifically talk about a few moments that made me think this in particular. The first thing that comes to mind is the animation. The moment in the first fight where it kind of does that stop motions from like the Mitchell from the Machines, I knew instantly I was going to love the animation for this movie because it I don't know why it works for like action sequences, but they really only did it for like action sequences, and that's why it really worked. When they were trying to highlight some of the action sequences, it worked. They didn't do it for all of it, so it still felt like its own thing, but it was definitely taking some inspiration from other animated movies and applying that where they thought it fit, and it worked great. But my favorite moment in the animation was actually most people say like, oh, the eyes were so cute because like they do the cat eyes that Puss does, and they do a little joke with that, especially with Perrito. But my favorite moment is when Puss got scared, his fur would flare up like a cat's. And it looked so real. It was amazing. So if you want some like really detailed, good animation, this is the movie, because that moment alone made me go like, oh yeah, like that, like this animation is top tier. That looks so real. And the point to the fur being animated like that had its reason in the story. And it was fantastic. fantastic. What do I want to talk about next? I guess I'll talk about the actual story. The reason I like the story so much is because I really like a lot of stories that like have symbolism with death. I'm into a lot of westerns actually, and you get a lot of that in westerns at times. You get the man with no name wearing all black and stuff, but this whole story is about death and people die. Like it's very adult for a kids movies, but it doesn't feel like it's overdone adult. Like I feel like it's done in a way where kids can understand what like death is, and it's taken in a not serious tone to where they won't get freaked out. Now the main villain is scary, but like not scary enough, like scary enough where the kids know like, oh, like he's bad. He's the bad guy right now, you know? So like it shouldn't be like too scary for them, but it works. It works really well. Puss is on his last life, as you probably already know if you listen to my non-spoiler section, and death is coming to take him. Essentially, he's like, you wasted your other 8 lives because he's a cat. He has 9 lives. Haha. You know, you wasted your other 8 lives. I'm not even gonna let you waste this one. I'm just gonna take you now. And it really challenges Puss to, like, he's been not afraid because he's always been like, oh, I have multiple lives. Like, I'm not afraid of death. I laugh in the face of death. And he's like, okay, well, if you laugh in the face of death, now that you're on your 9 life, it shouldn't be an issue, right? But it is. And the whole movie is about him addressing the fact that, like, death is coming after him and he cannot defeat it. And that's shown with almost every single character in the movie and every single thing that they come across. People die in this movie, and it's to highlight how much like death comes for just about everyone. And every single character kind of has like a different thing with death or like living your life to the fullest. Like specifically, Kitty is supposed to like she kind of challenges Puss's commitment, especially to her, and how like he doesn't live his life to the fullest and instead would just keep moving around like life doesn't mean anything because he doesn't commit, because he didn't commit to her, to marrying her, which is like supposed to challenge him, what subtly. It's mostly just supposed to finish off like a side story from the first movie, but that's okay because it does apply to this. Perito's supposed to be like the opposite of Puss, where he like Puss is always going like he's like, oh, like I don't have to worry about anything. He just lives his life willy-nilly. Well, Perito kind of enjoys it regardless of how bad it gets. He's like, I only got this one life. I'm just gonna enjoy it while I can. And it really adds like a challenge to Puss whenever like Puss is like, why do you think life is like that? It really puts in perspective that applies to the ending climax. And that's what his point of the story does so well. The side villains each kind of add an element to the main message about like living your life to the fullest and that you can't escape death. With Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, their dynamic is amazing. I think their accents work perfectly for them, which I'm a sucker for accents, whether it's like even the stereotypical American accent, and I'm American, so it makes me laugh. I thought their dynamic was great, and how they take the whole like live your life, live your life, like what does your life really mean to you, and kind of add a different perspective on it. That Goldilocks is going for the last wish. Oh, I should mention that in this, they go for the last wish because they're all trying to find the last wish to get a wish of their choosing, and Puss obviously wants to get his 9 lives back. Kitty wants I can't remember what Kitty wants. It's actually been like a couple days since I saw it. Perito doesn't want anything. He just wants to be with his friends, which is Puss and Kitty. But Goldilocks basically wants the last wish to wish her actual family back. Even though you kind of get the idea that she's made a family with these bears and that they're really close, and you see that. So their whole story with that is like they're villains trying to get the last wish from Puss, but you kind of see that they have their own reasons, and you're like, okay, they have a valid reason for it, so they're not really villains. They're just like somebody in the way, So it adds like interesting conflict like I feel for all of them here. But she wants to wish her actual family back, even though she's already made this family with the bears. So it kind of like outlines a message of like, you want this life that you never had, that you were never like you never got because you lost your parents, but you kind of got a new life instead, and you're just kind of throwing out that one to get one that you never had in the first place. So like what's that like life? Does that life not mean anything to you? It made you who you are now. So while it's not kind of the same message as the main story with Puss, with him like, he's afraid of death now that he doesn't have like a way out, it takes a different direction with it, what kind of works. Um and then they do the same with Jack Horner. He's a villain too, which I never knew much about the Jack Horner like is it a poem? No, it's not a poem. It's like a nursery rhyme. I don't remember that one. But like I was able to figure it out what essentially it was just by watching the movie, so it works. He's hilarious the entire time, and he's like the only person I kind of hated because he's actually like a villain, but he's John Mulaney's voice, so he kind of gets a little bit of a pass. Not really. I just think John Mulaney's funny, but like he's like a bad guy. He does bad things, but he has a point to the story, and he's a good character because he's at least entertaining and funny. So like even though he's this horrible person, you can still kind of laugh at him and be entertained when he's on screen. But while he's trying to get the last wish, because he just wants to wish for every magical item in the world, and he kind of used him as a way to get a bunch of references to other fairy tales, which works great. Like when he gets like their map to the last wish from these two people, and I don't know if they were supposed to be a fairy tale either, but like they're like, "Where's our payment?" And he goes, "Here it is," and he grabs this like golden hand, and he's like, "This is Midas's touch." And I know Greek mythology, and I was like, "Oh crap." And they're like, "Oh cool," and they grab it, and one of them turns into gold, essentially killing her, and the other person drags her away because it's like, "Yay, I got gold now." Like he just kills people, and he doesn't care if they even work for him, because he takes a bunch of his goons, and when he's fighting Puss in Boots and the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, he's just accidentally killing his own guys. And there's even like a little beetle, which I guess is another fairy tale. I didn't know about that one. There's a bunch I don't know about fairy tales, apparently. It's basically like, you're killing your own people. Don't you value their lives? And he's like, no, I don't really care. So like, yeah, that one's a bit more heavy-handed, but it still adds to the overall story. So like they have like a purpose other than just being like, oh, a funny side villain, which it would have been fine if that was what it was like, but like it added extra depth and it was nice. The main star of the show, and my favorite character above all, is actually Death himself, which I guess he's supposed to be like the big bad wolf, which makes a lot of sense if you kind of compare how he would fit in this world in general. But like he's coming after Puss because he's like, you wasted 8 of your lives, not actually like living your life to the fullest or like respecting what your life was. And now that you're on your last one, like you're going to take it slow. Like, no, like you don't actually respect your life. You're just afraid that you're actually going to lose it for once. So he's actually chasing Puss because he wants him to realize, he's like, you're wasting your life. And since you're wasting your life, I'm just going to take it because like you're wasting anyway. And it's a big disrespect to death, because death comes for everyone, regardless of who you are, no matter what. So when Puss is like, I laugh in the face of death, he goes like, well, you're not going to be laughing because you're actually going, like, you can't defeat me. And he knows he can't defeat him. Death is like, you actually can't defeat me. And like anytime Death is on screen, he's scary, but it's so cool. I could see how it could scare a kid, but honestly, like, he was the best part of the movie because it was just, like, he was so threatening, and when he was on screen, I was like, oh, crap. And he's just so sick. Instead of, like, the regular scythe, he has these 2 little sickle swords. I think that's how you call them, sickle swords, I think. But he fights with those, and he's just so cool. And he's established as a badass villain right from the start, because we see Puss in Boots do these like amazing feats of kill this giant, defeat this giant, and then when he meets Death for the first time, he gets his ass handed to him immediately. So you're already like, yeah, this villain's the real deal, and he stays the real deal throughout the entire time. So when the final fight comes, you're like, all right, this is it. I don't know where this is gonna go. The villain was just set up perfectly, and his purpose to the story made everything come together fantastically. And he wasn't even on screen that much. Like, maybe for 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe. I don't know. Probably more. I'm probably not giving enough credit. But he's awesome. He's the best part of the movie, in my opinion. Which brings me to my favorite point in the movie, and I'll kind of end it on this, and why I love it so much is how every character in their mini story and the overall messaging of the story came together at the climax just perfectly when Puss finally has his moment to really kind of learn his lesson, where he really knows what it means to value life. And everybody's story, everybody's like purpose to it finally comes together and actually means something to make a conclusive story. And the whole story about him facing his death, he's been scared up to this point, and then finally when he realizes from the past week where he's kind of like had his relationship, he's heard Burrito kind of give his perspective, he realizes that he's been wasting his life because he hasn't been really living it to the fullest, and he hasn't been really respecting what his like having a life is. So now that he realizes that, he's like, okay, well, at this point, like, I'm going to live my life to the fullest, but I can't do that just by running. Like, I have to live my life to the fullest by still defending myself and being brave, regardless of the fact that I could be dead forever. Because if, like, I am dead forever, I've at least say I live my life to the fullest, and I'm still going to fight to be able to keep living my life to the fullest as well, and to keep those relationships with his friends. Because like Kitty kind of gets to the point to him, like, oh, like, you never committed, you never had to worry about committing, and now he actually wanted to, because like he had a reason to live outside of his own personal, like him just living. He wanted to live so he could still spend his life with Kitty, spend his life with Perrito, with his friends. So now his life had more meaning than just himself, but others, and that's what living his life to the fullest. And he knew that he was still probably going to die to death. And I love the line where he's fighting death, and death is like fighting him, and he's like, you can't defeat me. He's like, I know, I'm not going to. But I will if it means I will try, if it means that I can still be with my friend. He says something along the lines of that, but it basically is the point I'm making, is that he finally gets it. And then death, it makes everything that death was set up to be so meaningful when he's like, I don't see the cat that I saw a few days ago. Like, you actually value your life, so I'm going to let you live it. The whole point of why death was chasing him, Puss actually shows change, and he's like, all right, well, it's pointless for me to keep doing this because you have changed. Which, because, like, if he were to actually defeat death in, like, a fight, that would kind of defeat the purpose of what he kind of learned, because he can't defeat death. He's literally death. Which I know it's kind of heavy-handed with the symbolism at times, but it works so well. They did it so respectfully, and it's so respected you as an audience to figure that out for yourself, too. So, like, that moment in the movie is so great. It brought some emotion out of me, like, just to see this character from the beginning of the movie kind of get the point in a very genuine manner, and it was amazing. Just fantastic. So, kind of close it off. Ending my review, I kind of already said everything. The animation was great. The story was great. The characters were great. I was entertained from start to finish, and I highly recommend you go see this movie. Let me know what you guys think of my opinions on the movie, whether you think my rating was good. I gave it a 9 out of 10, thinking it could get a 9.5. If you think it deserves that 9.5, or maybe you think it deserves lower, you'd be fighting an uphill battle against a lot of people, I feel like, but you're entitled to your opinion. Let me know down in the comments below. Give me your thoughts on the movie itself. Let me know if you're excited to go see it or anything, and tell me what other movies you'd like me to review. I don't always have to review new movies. I can review old movies as well on this podcast. I am planning to maybe review Avatar: The Way of Water. I haven't really entirely decided, but I'm kind of itching towards that because I did see that in theaters recently too, and I feel like that movie kind of deserves kind of like an opinion from me if I wanted to do more reviews, I'm just one guy. You don't have to listen to me at all, but anybody can really share their opinions. But like, I feel like if I wanted to share an opinion about movies, like, that one kind of deserves it because it's more of a culture event, since Avatar 1 was so big, which I don't know how much money this one made. I think it broke records because it's just Avatar 2. But I did like Avatar 1. I'll get to it when I do the actual review of that. Regardless, let me know what you'd want to see me do. Let me know what you think about this movie. And I hope I can see you guys all in the next podcast. And maybe, hopefully, maybe this could be our outro now. I hope to see you guys all in theaters. See ya. What do you think? That's a good outro? Is that a good outro? Right? That's a good outro? People that aren't here to tell me I'm wrong. Regardless, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I do hope to see you guys all in the next video, the next episode, and possibly in theaters with me, watching these amazing movies with me. See you guys.